Sibanye Zim DevConf. I hope you guys were super excited to hear from the speakers that spoke on day 1. We are going to continue with day 2 as we bring more speakers and little bits of some interviews that we had. Stay tuned.
Hello, welcome to Sibanye Developers Conference 2023. My name is Kelvin, Carrington, Tichana, and I'm a data officer at EdPlus at Arizona State University. I'm also an electrical and electronic engineer. I've experience in data science for about 2 years and also experience in embedded software engineering for about 2 years too. Right, my topic here is on embedded machine learning. What is that? That is machine learning that runs on embedded devices. That is devices that are constrained, that are resource limited. And this refers to machine learning that runs on the edge. And why is that? What does it take? We're gonna get into details of that. So embedded systems and IoT, well, they are an integral part of our lives because they kind of like control a lot of things that happen on devices such as smartwatches, mobile devices, smart home systems, smart irrigation systems, greenhouses, refrigerators. You know, a lot of these smart tech that we have and enjoy today is built around embedded systems and IoT. As you can see here, we have an image of a car infotainment system built around a Raspberry Pi. That's the application of embedded systems, for example. You could literally build your own car infotainment system with just a touch screen display and a Raspberry Pi and a power supply. Embedded systems are built around microcontrollers and microprocessors. And as you can see here on my top left corner, we have a Freedom board by NXP, which is a quite powerful microcontroller. Then next to it, we have an Arduino, which is very common. Then we have a Raspberry Pi, which is a microprocessor. And then we have an Arduino RP2040. These are some of the embedded devices that are quite common today and are in use and can be used to automate a lot of things and make our lives easier. And they are easy to program. Well, some of them. Right, embedded software is usually built using C++, Rust, assembly, or MicroPython. But it takes more than just programming in these languages to be able to build an efficient embedded systems. One needs to know computer architecture, that is the hardware that makes up a computer. What really goes in the hardware that makes up a computer? You need to understand what architecture you're working with, right? So that you know exactly how to efficiently program it. For example, we know from data structures and algorithms that, you know, some algorithms take longer than others. In embedded systems, we need to have a delivery time that's precise. So we need to understand things like interrupts. We need to understand things like registers. We need to understand things like pointers, because they point to memory. So an understanding of memory is very essential in embedded systems software development, right? And we also have been, I don't know, some of you may have been introduced to embedded systems using an Arduino. It's kind of like a derivative of C, but it's much easier because you're using libraries. But it's only good for learning purposes. But if you want to build commercial embedded systems, you may need to expand beyond an Arduino, although it's a good starting point. The reason is this: Arduino is not easily scalable and it's not as efficient, it's not as accurate, it's not as powerful. You know, the clocking frequency is not as great for most and modern embedded systems for what they need. And Arduino may not be the ideal solution for you, but for a starting point, that's a good good approach to learn Arduino. The Freedom board is one board that I used when I learned embedded systems. It's much more powerful than Arduino. Just to give you context, this is the Freedom board, the first board right there, FRDMKL25Z. Also here we have two Freedom boards that are communicating with each other. Right, this is how it's programmed. It's programmed using C, the normal C that we will know of, but then this C requires you to know a lot more about registers, a lot more about macros, a lot more about pointers, and a lot more about bit flipping, bit setting, bit clearing, and all of that bit manipulation. For example, this code here is a code I used in a project that I did at school, and the first part of it is just showing you how you need to clock gate a certain port on the Freedom board. In this case, it's port B, right? And also port B, port C, and port E. And another thing we need to do is be able to configure each pins of the GPIO on the Freedom board such that they can act either as input or output. But first, we need to clear and set some register values because it's a lot more complex than just programming in Arduino. This is just goes to show you the effort that goes into building an embedded system. Embedded systems and IoT form an integral part of our daily lives, especially in automation. You can find embedded systems in smart refrigerators, smart microwave ovens, in cell phones, in smart irrigation systems, in greenhouses, in smart watches, in smartphones. Almost everywhere there's an embedded systems in IoT. And here we have an example of an embedded systems that you can find in your car. This one was made using a Raspberry Pi and a touch screen display. There's a car infotainment system. So embedded systems is really important. You can find it in your car too, right? And in an IoT system, we have sensors, and sensors are the interface between the environment and an embedded system. And these sensors are collecting data in real time, and this data may be a lot. So they make things a little bit interesting because it means we are now working with data, and if we are to scale in an IoT system, it means the data that we get is multitude. For example, here we have an irrigation system with multiple of sensors there. We need to figure out what's going on. And these are the kind of sensors that we can work with, like flame sensors, gas sensors, IR sensors. And yeah, even in industrial automation, there are sensors that get to observe and tell us what's happening around the system. Right, so that means the more we have data, the less likely we're going to make sense out of it in the shortest time possible. So there is need for machine learning models to analyze this sensor data that we are getting from our sensors. And this will help us make predictions, and it will also help us do things like detection. For example, here we have an NVIDIA RC car that has LiDAR and cameras, and it usually uses computer vision to navigate around parts. So that's a use of AI on the edge. We can rely on servers, right? We can probably have an API call that does all this machine learning for us. And while we still have an embedded system that doesn't really have to run any machine learning algorithms. Well, there are drawbacks to this. One of them is that servers can be pricey. Two is that there's data privacy issues that we have. We have seen the story of Cambridge Analytica, right? If you have a smart home that has cameras that are observing your house, would you really need some server elsewhere to analyze that footage for you? Or you want to do it on the board, on the house? Perhaps you would want to do that on the house. So control. You want to control your own data. And then we have to recommend things, for example, in a smart home, we want to be able to have efficient energy use. So we want to have recommended systems that run on board. Right. Here is an example of why onboard machine learning matters. Here we have the Perseverance rover. I think all of us may be aware of this, that it landed in Mars, I think 2020, and everybody was proud of it. NASA JPL designed this rover, but Mars is quite far away, right? And you must wonder, how is it exactly navigating the Martian surface? If Mars is far away, it takes minutes, right? At the closest point between Mars and Earth, we have about 11 minutes of light travel for light to get from Mars to Earth, right? And the furthest it can be 20 minutes, 22 minutes. So if we want to control or remotely control this rover, it means there's a lag. There's about 20 minutes lag, which is not ideal if you want to drive this thing in real time. So it must self-navigate on the Martian surface. So I'm not sure of the algorithm they used, but my guess is that there's embedded machine learning on the computers that are on board that observe what's happening on the surface, that use cameras, that use other sensors, and see what is the best route to take to get to a destination. So that's why embedded machine learning matters. So how do we build models that run on embedded machine learning devices? If we have an Arduino RP240, how do we ensure that it actually works? Or even an ESP32, which is about 240 megahertz of clocking speed, right? Compare that to a MacBook or whatever computer you're using. That's nothing. How do we ensure that the machine learning models can run on these microcontrollers? Well, we need to ensure we convert normal machine learning models that we build using TensorFlow, for example, to TensorFlow Lite. So TensorFlow Lite allows us to build models that are compatible with microcontrollers. How do we do that? There's a conversion process that is involved from TensorFlow to TensorFlow Lite. We're going to get into that. We're going to show you an example code that converts an H5 model, which is a model built on TensorFlow, to a TF Lite model, right? So here's what it looks like. This sample code here just shows you what's involved in the conversion process. Assuming we have a model that we've trained using TensorFlow called detectVoice.h5, right? We would have used a deep neural network whatsoever, and then we want to now have that model run on a microcontroller, run on a Raspberry Pi. How do we go about it? So here we see that we import TensorFlow as TF, because TensorFlow helps us with the conversion. Then within TensorFlow there's Keras, which is an API that allows us to build models, and it also has layers, it also has models, it also has methods that can help us load models. So we can load a model using this line here that says model equal to tf.keras.models.load model, and we load our model that we would have trained earlier, assuming that we have it, detectVoice.h5. Then we convert this model to a TensorFlow Lite format, which is what's compatible with the microcontroller. To do that, we simply do converter is called tflite.tflite converter from Keras model. Then we pass our model, and then we can do the conversion. And then we can now save the tflite model, and then we can infer that model now on a microcontroller. Now, allow me to introduce to you my project, which is built around embedded machine learning. So I'm introducing MISCHIEF. MISCHIEF stands for Modeling Intelligent Systems for Computer-Human Interaction Effort-Free. So it's an acronym that I had to come up with to meet my demands. Let's call it that, right? It's a voice assistant that runs on Mac, Windows, and embedded devices such as the Raspberry Pi or the NVIDIA Jetson Nano. It can do almost everything that Siri does, but it also has some other things that it does that Siri cannot, right? And you will see that in the demo. It can also control IoT devices such as the ones you have in smart homes, right? So here's how MISCHIEF works on the Raspberry Pi. So MISCHIEF is a program that I built from scratch using the Python programming language. It uses TensorFlow, it uses natural language toolkit, It uses some other text to speech conversion tools, right? And it runs on a Raspberry Pi, which is the Raspbian OS, the operating system that's common on a Raspberry Pi, which is a Unix-based operating system. And on this Raspberry Pi, we have 4 Docker containers that are running the Ming IoT stack. Ming IoT stack basically means there's Mosquito running on it, which is an MQTT broker. There's InfluxDB running on it, which is a database, just like we can have Apache or anything like that. And then we have Node-RED, which allows us to route MQTT signals from a source to a destination. And then we have Grafana. Grafana helps us with the display of sensor data. You know, we can have a dashboard that we can work with. Okay, right. So that's how Mischief works when it's running on a Raspberry Pi. When it's running on a different device, such as a Mac or a Windows computer, it's a different scenario, but we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about embedded machine learning. I'm going to show you some of the examples that I've done using Mischief, and yeah, this is what Mischief can do. It certainly does more like play movies and stuff, but we're not going to talk about that here. But if you want to read more about Mischief, there was a blog post by Raspberry Pi themselves. They published some of my work, and you can find it on their website.
Welcome, my name is Mischief.
What is the weather like?
Temperature in Barakuso is 23.71 degrees Celsius and humidity is 88% with clear sky wind speed of 2.57 knots.
Turn on the light.
Light on.
Turn on the first fan.
I was wondering when you'd ask. Fan 1 on.
Turn off the light.
Light off.
Turn off the fan.
Fan 1 off.
Live security feed.
Server started.
Call my phone. Send sensor values to my phone via text.
Sending temperature, humidity and sound level.
Tell me something about Ashesi University in Ghana.
Ashesi University is a private, non-profit institution located in Ghana. It was founded in 2002 by Patrick Awuah, a former Microsoft employee. The university focuses on cultivating a new generation of ethical and entrepreneurial leaders in Africa. It offers undergraduate programs in fields such as business administration, computer science, engineering, and more. Ashesi has consistently been ranked as one of the top universities in Ghana and Africa.
Exit.
Goodbye, Mr. Tichana.
Try to see if Mischief can see me, and if I ask it what do you see, it should be able to tell me what it sees. It cannot only just see me, but objects around me. What do you see?
I see, person.
What do you see?
I see, person, sofa, cell phone.
To speak, you simply press S. What is your name?
I am Mischief, which stands for Modeling Intelligent Systems for Computer-Human Interaction Effort-Free.
Open navigation.
Where do you want to navigate?
Emerald Hill, Harare.
Here is what I found for Emerald Hill, Harare.
That's pretty cool. Let's go back. Okay. What is happening around the world?
Eng versus Aus live score. Ashes 5th test day 5. Steve Smith and Travis Head keep Australia steady as teams head for lunch. The Indian Express. Euclid test images tease of riches to come. European Space Agency.
Run a search.
What do you want to search for?
Quantum physics.
Here is what I found.
Not bad. So that is all that I had for you today. You can learn more about me and we can chat and we can share ideas. My contact information is on the screen. Thank you.
Welcome again. I'm here with Efraim from CC Hub Namibia, and Efraim is a community manager. So I want us to talk and discuss about, what does it mean to be a community manager? Efraim, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So Efraim, can you briefly tell us about yourself? Who is Efraim, and some snippets of what you do?
Well, first off, Efraim is just a young guy who grew up in the coastal area, from Walvish Bay, and then after that, I actually moved to the city. Currently, where I am residing for the past few years. From my tertiary side, I actually did computer science, and I did my bachelor's in cybersecurity, and I did my honors in digital forensics.
Wow.
Yes, and I'm currently living my dream job,
Nice.
basically. And as you mentioned, being a community manager to me, it's I would say it's one of the best things that actually ever happened to me. Yeah.
So every time people walk in CC Hub, there's always that grasp of, wow, they love the place, they love the space and all of that. So can you tell us a little bit of what is CC Hub and what you guys do, just brief?
Interesting enough, seeing someone's face, the look on someone's face when they should walk in CC Hub, it's quite inspiring, one. And also the fact that it kind of just gives you that motivation to want to push more and make the community better. Mm-hmm. So just for you to then have a better understanding of what CC Hub is all about. So basically CC Hub is one of Africa's leading innovation hub, and we are dedicated to accelerating the application of technology and innovation as well. So we're not only focusing on the community, but we're also focusing on how to improve the environment around us and also the community for the better of Africa, and also just to improve the economy of Africa. We are a Pan-African organization after all.
That's really fantastic.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about you mentioned about a lot of things. You are the leading African innovation hub and all of that. So what does it mean in terms of the local people in Namibia? Because you guys are located in Namibia, and I understand you have different branches in other African countries as well. But in terms of the local people that really want to be part of it, like how can they be part of CC Hub? Are there any events or activities that you guys have here at CC Hub?
So as part of the community lead in Namibia, you need to understand that the community you're working with, right?
Okay.
So you need to understand what exactly they want.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why we identify our community, we curate events for them to actually keep them interested and also want to be a part of the community. Being part of the community is quite easy. All you need to do is just attend most of our events, and then boom, you become part of our community.
Okay.
And being a community member actually comes with a lot of benefits, right? So all these events you attend, they are all curated for that specific member of the specific community. And obviously we understand that there is different needs from our community, so we try to identify all these gaps in our community and then also fill those gaps. Yeah.
Okay. No, awesome. So some people think that is CC Hub only focused on tech people like developers like me, because I'm always here.
Yes.
Or are there any other sections that you guys also cater for from people that are not really technical or in that space?
That's actually an interesting question, because when people hear about CC Hub, all they think is innovation technology.
Yeah.
But even though our main focus is on technology, we do have other practices. Apart from tech and society, we have the startup support, which focuses on supporting startups through incubation and acceleration programs, and also some funding, of course. And then apart from that, we have the creative economy practice. This focuses on creating a platform for the creatives, the creative industry. As we know, in Namibia, the creative industry is not really that active, so the CC Hub creative economy practice is trying to fill that gap. We do have the design for health. Yes, that focuses more on the research when it comes to the health sector. We have the high education innovation, which focuses more on the tertiary. And currently we are running a program called the Uni Innovators, where we take 6 different students from UNAM and NAST, and the idea is for them to go through incubation with their innovative idea, of course, since they are all in the ideation stage. And then after that, we try to then invest and then also take these guys to pitch internationally. Yeah.
You guys are really doing a lot. Like, you guys are busy, and it's really good to see some action happening with unemployment issues, and people get busy in trying to come up with innovative solutions that they can use to solve issues in their communities. So you have mentioned about startups. Are there any startup founders that you guys have groomed from CC Hub Namibia? Like examples, some practical examples.
Well, yes.
Okay.
So CC Hub originally from Nigeria, right?
Okay.
And I like this story that my CEO always tells. So we have the virtual gentleman who just walked into CC Hub in flip-flops, and today he is a unicorn, which means and he was groomed by CC Hub, and obviously the connection that CC Hub and the market exists that CC Hub provided for him, and to date he is a unicorn, which basically means his startup is worth 1 billion. So, and we do have like a number of startups. We also worked with Namibian startups before, so just to mention, CC Hub is not new. We have been in Namibia for the past year, and we worked with Pebble, and as well as Kani, as well as Nam Groceries, who were part of the Google Plant Founders that was facilitated by CC Hub.
Awesome. So you guys are doing serious stuff. You guys are not playing at all.
We're not here to play, really.
No, that's really nice. So Efraim, any last words?
Just to anyone who has an idea and feels like there's no platform for them to go to, anyone who needs any technological support, mentorship, I would just like to let them know that CC Hub is here for you.
you guys are the place to go.
CC Hub is the place to be.
No, thank you so much, Efraim, for talking with us. Really appreciate the information that you have given us today. And that is it. Efraim was speaking about CC Hub. We'll definitely share the links on their social media platforms where you guys can follow them and see the various activities that they are doing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vuyisile Ndlovu, and in this talk, I'll share with you a few tips on how to improve your debugging workflow using the VS Code debugger. Before we get started, let me tell you a bit about myself. I'm based in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. I'm a software developer with a strong inclination to DevOps and automation. I like developing in the cloud and learning as much as I can about it. I like open source software, and I've contributed to a number of projects. I've contributed to Mozilla, Opia, and the Django Software Foundations. When I'm not coding, I enjoy writing technical articles and documentation. I've written technical documents for different companies, and I've contributed to one of the most popular Python blogs, Real Python. And I also like to tinker with Raspberry Pis. I like to manage my networks using Raspberry Pis and build services on them. The last Raspberry Pi project I worked on is an offline clone of the Python packaging index. So it basically enables you to install Python packages without an internet connection. Debugging is an important part of every software developer's workflow. It's an essential skill that every developer should have. It's unfortunately often overlooked or underutilized. So in this talk, I'll let you know what debugging is and show you how to use the VS Code debugger. Now, there are many debuggers out there, but I'll just show you how to use the debugger found in one of the most popular editors. I'll show you how to leverage the power of the VS Code debugger to pause the execution of a running program in order to set breakpoints and inspect its internal state at different points during its execution. But before we get into that, let's first talk about what debugging is. Bugs are unintended flaws or issues that cause your software to behave incorrectly and produce incorrect results. Now, debugging is the process of identifying those bugs, analyzing them, and hopefully resolving the bugs in the software code. Finding bugs involves steps such as printing out setting print statements at key points in your code to figure out the values of different variables as the program is running. And it might involve looking at logs or trying to run the application using different settings, etc. So this is an inevitable part of the software development process. I mean, so it's good to be comfortable with tools that make the debugging process easier, and which is why we're talking about debuggers today. There are many debuggers, like I mentioned, and many of them are language specific. So if you're a Python developer, you've probably heard of the PDB debugger, or if you're from the world of Java, you probably use JDB or GDB if you're a C or C++ person. So as I mentioned above, all these debuggers have the same core set of features. They allow you to set breakpoints in your code. They allow you to step through your code line by line or function by function. And they all do this in order to allow you to inspect the program state at different points during the running of the program. So let's have a look at the VS Code debugger. To start debugging, the first thing you want to do is set a breakpoint. A breakpoint is a convenient feature that allows you to jump to a certain point in the program that you're interested in. So we'll set the first breakpoint here. So you set breakpoints here in the margin next to the margin here. So I'll set it here on line 19. So what this will do is the debugger will run, execute the program, and then when it gets to this point, it will stop. When this breakpoint is hit, it will stop, and then we can step through the program from here. So to start the debugger, you go here, run, and click F5 or start debugging. Right? You'll notice that the program didn't run here. We don't have any output, but instead we have this line highlighted here in yellow. That means the interpreter has stopped there. It has stopped on the main function. And if we go into the call stack, we should see it update once we actually go into it. So the program has paused just before the main function has been called. And we now have this toolbar here. This toolbar has the controls for the debugger. So the first button is a continue button. This will continue the execution of the program. The second one is a step over. This is useful when you want to step over code or a function and you don't want to go through it line by line. The step into button will step into a function so you can go through the function's code line by line. The step out will go out of the function. And this is to restart and stop the debugger. So we want to go through the code line by line to figure out what the problem is with this program. So what we can do is, while we're here, is add a variable to our watch list. So I imagine the problem is somewhere here in the numbers. So we want to watch the numbers variable. So we can just type in numbers, add it to the watch. And we get an error here, but it doesn't matter because at this point in the program, the numbers variable hasn't been defined. Okay, so let's go into the main function. I'll press this button to step into the main function. And now we are in the main function. And if you check the call stack, you notice we call the module and the first function we called was the main function. And we're in the main function now. So the call stack has been updated. Okay, let's step into the next line. Okay, so we now have here in the watch list, the numbers variable has been updated. So we can inspect the numbers variable. Look at that. We have, that could be our problem. We have 100 instead of 10. This must have been a typo. So this watch section allows you to see the values of the variables and inspect them in real time. You can also see the values of the variables in this variables section. This will show you all the variables, the system variables, and the variables you've defined yourself. Okay, so now that we have an idea what the numbers is, we can continue with the program. So I'll hit continue, and then we're now in this print numbers function. So if we go back into our call stack, you'll see that we're in the print numbers function. Okay, so this is the loop, and it will allow us to iterate over the numbers array or the numbers list and run all the code in here. So let's go through it line by line and see what that looks like. So I'm just going to go into the variables so we can see the variables as they get updated. So the first thing we do is create an index. The index is at 0, and the item at index 0 is 1. So that's what we see there. Okay. We go into the next step. We check there's a condition there that checks to see if the number is greater than 20. It's not. And so the item gets printed to the terminal. So that's what we see here. It gets printed. And then the loop goes back. The index is now 1. And the item at index 1 is 2. So we can keep going like this, keep going until we get to the problem, which is 9. Okay, so this is close to where the problem is. So when item is 9, does that get printed? Yes, that gets printed. Okay, but when the item updates and the item is 100, this condition gets activated, and that's why we get that out of range message and the program breaks. Okay, so that little example there shows you how to step through a program and how to use the debugger's features to see the state of the program as it is running. I like to use a debugger whenever I'm debugging web applications because they tend to be more complicated and have lots of moving parts. So let's switch over back to the slides and so I can explain what I mean. Now, most web applications look something like what you see on the screen. They follow a request response cycle, right? And web application frameworks such as Django follow a model view template architecture, which is what you're looking at here. What that essentially boils down to is whenever a user makes a request to the Django server or the web application server, the request includes a URL. It's an HTTP request that includes a URL. So the server will check the URL to see if it's a valid URL. And if it is, the server will then match that URL to a given view function. A view function is a function that handles all the logic required to process the request. So the processing of the request might involve going out to an external API, collecting data, or querying a model or a database, processing that data, and then doing whatever is required to respond to the user, and then rendering an HTML template and then sending that back to the user as a response. So there could be a lot of things happening here, and there's potentially a lot of things could go wrong in either of these steps. So with using a debugger, we can pause the execution at any point here. We could pause it while it's going out to an external, while the view is going out to an external API, while it's calling a database, or when it's rendering the template, or when it's creating a session or checking the URL, anything. We can use a debugger to step through each of these steps. So I have a web application that has a bug. So I'm going to use the debugger to figure out what the bug is and hopefully correct it. So let's switch over to VS Code and have a look at what's going on. So what you're seeing here is code for a Django project that I'm working on. Let me do this. Let me switch over to Google Chrome first. So what I'm working on is a geolocation service. If you've used whatismyip.com or something similar, this is what it does. The user visits the site and it tells them what their public IP is and what country they are in, and it draws a little map showing their approximate location. It also allows you to search for an IP address. So for instance, if we search for an IP address such as this, it would tell us that that IP is in this country, right? So that's the application. Let's go back to the code. So the first view, the one that draws the map, is this one here, this home view. And then the search view is the one at the bottom here. Now, the bug I'm experiencing is somewhere in this view here. I'll show you what the bug is in a moment. So let's go back. Okay, so suppose I type in an invalid IP, right? The user types in an invalid IP, I try to search for it, we get an error. So I need to figure out what is causing this error, and we're going to use debugger to fix it. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I disabled the debug mode in the web application so that we're forced to look for the error in the code. Okay. All right, so the error is somewhere in this search function. And what we'll do is we'll go into the debug mode. Okay, what do we want to do now? We'll set a breakpoint. Let's set a breakpoint here, right? So whenever this view is called, the program will stop here. So let me stop the program and run the debugger. So I'll go run, start debugging. Okay, that's the debugger started. Let's go back into the browser. Let's refresh this page. You'll notice now behind me here, let me do this. Right, you'll notice here let me put this here. So you'll notice that the debugger stopped at this point here, right? So what we can do now is we can inspect the request. The request came in. This is a GET request, and that's the IP. Those are the parameters that were passed in, right? Okay, let me swap these windows around so I can see better. Now I'll snap this one to the left and put Chrome there, web browser over there. Okay. So the request is paused here. We can highlight the request to view the request. It's a normal GET request, that's okay. And if we go into this debug view, run and debug view, we can see the variables that have been defined. We have the request right now, nothing else. Okay. So let's step over the request. Okay, we now have an IP address. That IP address is clearly invalid because it contains a .xyz at the end, right? We know that. But what we're expecting is that the program should fail gracefully. So if you look at the logic here, I make the assumption that we'll get a response from the external API, and if it's a 200, we'll render the page and display the IP address to the user, the IP address and the geolocation information to the user. But if the request is not a 200, we should then display an error to the user. So for some reason, this error is not getting displayed. So we're trying to figure out why that is using the debugger. So let me step through it again. Okay. So we get the response. Now let's have a look at the response. So if we, okay, that's odd. The response is, the status code of the response is 200, right? But the text says that it failed. Okay, so I was under the assumption that a bad request would return a 400 error, but instead we're getting a 200 error, a 200 status code. That is weird. Okay, so we have a 200 response code, which means that this branch of the logic will get executed, and then the view will attempt to render a template expecting some geo IP information in the response, but we don't have any, and we can confirm that by looking at the debugger on the left. We're looking for, let's go into the debug console. That'll show us more information. So we can do response.json to see what is in there, right? Let's close this for now. So you see, we don't have any geolocation information. So when the view tries to render the template, it fails because it doesn't have any geolocation information that we need. Okay, so how can we fix this? So this is definitely the problem. We're getting a good response for a bad request. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let's stop the program now and modify this condition here. So it should look something like, let's add another condition. So we could say and response.json if the status is good. Wait, hang on, let me run this again. What are we looking for? Let's run the debugger again. I want to see. Wait, I have access to it, so I can check. Okay, so we're looking for the response. Where's the response? Okay, here's a response. It has a status code. Okay, so, let's go into the debug console now. I want to see response.json. Right, that's what I'm looking for. So the status message is fail. Okay, so now I'm going to try running a request with a good IP, a well-formed IP, and see what the status message is, and then that will help us figure out what to do here. Okay, so I'm just going to continue there, and then I'll run the same request. I'll remove that now. Okay, and then I'll step through this again. Okay, so let's run this again. So this is much better. There's more information here. So the status is success. Okay, so based on this, I can tell now that a successful request has a status of success and a status code of 200. Right, we can see that there. We're getting a status code of 200. So to make this a valid check, we need to also check for the status message. Okay, so we can now go and response.json. Let's get the status message, status, and that should be equal to success. Okay, so we're adding this edge case to catch the condition where the response code is 200 and the message includes success text. So if it does not have these two conditions returning true, this line of code should get executed. Okay, so I'm going to save this and restart the debugger, and then refresh. Let's remove this breakpoint. So let's go here. We can disable this breakpoint here this way. Let me just show you the long way. We can disable the breakpoint by unchecking that, and let's continue with the program. Okay, so the program works okay for a valid IP. Let's try an invalid IP this time around. So I type in the IP that includes the XYZ at the end, hit enter, and now we're getting a proper error message that we expected. So what does this show us? This shows us how we can use a debugger to find problems in our code. And in this case, the problem wasn't actually in my code, but it was in a badly formatted response from an external API. And this is something you might come across in the real world, and having a tool such as a debugger is helpful in figuring out what the problem is. Okay, so I barely scratched the surface here on the subject of debuggers, but I really hope that what I showed you today will spark an interest in you to continue using debuggers in your workflow. Now, there are many more debuggers you can try out. The VS Code debugger is not the only one. So please look into what debuggers are available in your language, or what debuggers are available in your editor or IDE of choice. There are a lot more features I didn't cover, like how some debuggers allow you to profile your code, or do multi-target debugging, or debug different applications using different run configurations. There's a whole lot more, and so I recommend you that you look into the debugger of your choice, read the docs, and use the debugging tools. Make your job much easier. So thank you very much for listening to my talk. If you'd like to get in touch with me, this is my information. I'm on Twitter, or X as they call it these days. My handle is @TerraMajor. I have a website where I blog about topics such as these, Vuyisile.com. And if you'd like to send me an email, you can reach me at VuyisileNdlovu@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
gentlemen, tech enthusiasts and fellow developers, welcome. I am thrilled to stand before you today as we delve into the exciting world of image recognition and object detection in Android apps. My name is Nkosinathi Dhanda, a passionate full-stack designer and software engineer, and I've been on an incredible tech journey since the tender age of 16. When high school ignited the spark, that has since grown into a blazing passion. Now some of you might recognize me as the visionary behind viral UI UX designs that have caught fire across platforms. Perhaps you've come across my transformative redesign of the EcoCache app, a project that ignited conversations and set imaginations alight on Twitter. But today, this webinar is about much more than design. It's about unlocking the intricate world of development that I'm equally passionate about. With a focus spanning web, mobile, data science, and IoT, my journey has been one of exploration, innovation, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Today's event marks a pivotal moment for me as I extend an open invitation to the vibrant Zim developer community. This is a celebration of collaboration where we dive deep into the magic integrating powerful deep learning models into Android apps for image recognition and object detection. So buckle up and get ready to embark on a journey that's as much about technical prowess as it's about creative inspiration. Let's empower ourselves with knowledge, spark conversations that drive progress, and create a network of passionate minds ready to take on new challenges. Thank you for being part of this exciting chapter where design meets development and imagination meets innovation. Welcome to a webinar that promises to open doors, broaden horizons, and ignite a new wave of possibilities for all of us in the Zim developer community. So as I've mentioned, my name is Nkosinathi Dhanda. I'll be speaking about image recognition and object detection in Android apps. What I will speak about. I'll speak about using deep learning models for image recognition and object detection in Android apps. I'll discuss popular models like MobileNet, SSD, or YOLO, and how to integrate them into Android projects for tasks like object identification or real-time object tracking. Chapter 1. Importance of image recognition and object detection. So let's discover the captivating realm of image recognition and object detection, the driving forces behind innovation across diverse industries. Imagine entering the world of augmented reality, where digital and physical boundaries merge seamlessly. Image recognition powers AR applications, immersing us in experiences like trying on virtual outfits, placing furniture, or interacting with digital characters. Is the magic that transforms smartphones into portals of endless possibilities, enriching our interaction with the world. Let's shift our focus to autonomous vehicles. Self-driving cars are becoming reality, largely thanks to object detection. Imagine a car that identifies pedestrians, cyclists, vehicles, and road signs with incredible accuracy. Object detection acts as a vigilant eyes, ensuring safety and efficiency, reshaping transportation. Let's set our minds beyond entertainment and transport. These technologies revolutionize healthcare, agriculture, and retail. In healthcare, image recognition aids diagnosis by swiftly analyzing medical images. In agriculture, it monitors crop health and identifies pests, improving farming practices. Retail utilizes image recognition for personalized shopping experience. Let's redefine human capabilities. Deep learning models, born from neural networks and computational prowess, shine for accuracy and efficiency. They decode intricate patterns distinguishing between cats and dogs or complex architectural details. Their efficiency, like turbocharged engines, powers the future. MobileNet conserves energy, SSD saves records, and YOLO achieves real-time detection. We've come to the conclusion of chapter 1. This isn't just tech, it's a mathematical and creative symphony, transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. The popularity of deep learning models is a digital revolution, turning the vague into the vivid. Embrace this journey of innovation. The future is more precise, captivating, and transformative than ever. We've now come to chapter 2, understanding the concepts. Chapter 2, Introduction. Let's embark on a journey into the world of image recognition and object detection, where machines learn to see and understand visuals. Image recognition. Think of it as teaching computers to be like Sherlock Holmes. Recognizing objects, scenes, and concepts in images is the art of deciphering the nuances of photography, allowing machines to grasp details beyond the surface, revealing insights that were once human exclusive. Object detection. Imagine a digital tracker that not just recognizing but pinpointing objects, locations in images. Is like a guardian angel for self-driving cars, distinguishing pedestrians from poles and cyclists from tumbleweeds. Object detection outlines objects with bounding boxes, granting machines an uncanny spatial understanding. These aren't just algorithms, they're like sensors gifted to our digital companions. They bridge the gap between visuals and data, infusing our creations with the ability to comprehend and respond. As we explore this realm of pixels and patterns, we're unraveling the enigma of machines that see and understand, echoing the dance of human minds with innovations, ones and zeros. Let's differentiate these concepts. So let's start with image recognition. So imagine being handed a photograph and naming the objects within it. Image recognition is about perceiving what's depicted, like saying, that's a cat on a windowsill, or a stunning sunset. It's a digital artist naming elements without drawing the outlines. That is image recognition. Versus, let's now speak about object detection. Object detection now add spatial understanding, not only name the cat but also draw a board around it. Object detection goes further. It identifies objects and marks them with bounding boxes, revealing where they are in the image. It's like sketching lines around the objects to show their precise locations. Chapter 2 Conclusion. In essence, image recognition names elements while object detection does the same and provides spatial context with bounding boxes. Both concepts empower machines to understand visuals like humans, turning pixels into meaningful insights. They redefine digital sight and are pivotal in reshaping how machines interact with our visual world. We've now come to chapter 3. We're now speaking about deep learning models. Chapter 3 Introduction. Let's now dive into the unique architecture and standout features of each of these powerful models. We shall begin with MobileNet. MobileNet is like a swift and nimble acrobat of the deep learning world. It's tailored specifically for mobile devices where resources are precious and efficiency is king. This model is crafted to strike a remarkable balance between accuracy and speed, making it an ideal candidate for image recognition and object detection on your smartphones and tablets. It's like having a pocket-sized genius that can analyze images while sipping on the least amount of computational juice, all without compromising on its ability to make sense of what it sees. Let's now take a look at YOLO. You only look once. Similar to you only live once, but oh well, let's look at it. Now imagine a model that's like a magician, maybe the great Houdini per se, capable of perceiving and comprehending a scene in a single awe-inspiring instant. That's YOLO. This model is designed for real-time detection. It doesn't waste time looking at an image multiple times. It's all about efficiency and immediacy. With YOLO, a single forward pass through the network is all it takes to detect objects, their classes, and their precise locations all at once. It's like having a lightning-fast investigator who can scan an entire image in a blink without needing to double-check anything. Let's now look at SSD, single-shot multi-box detector. Imagine a model that's like a virtuous musician performing a complex piece in a single breathtaking sweep. That's SSD for you. This model takes a remarkable shortcut for performing a detection and localizing of objects in just one pass. It doesn't need multiple steps or layers. It's all about efficiency. But what's truly captivating is its ability to take objects of varying scales, from petite pebbles to towering trees, all with different sized bounding boxes. It's like having an artist sketching an entire scene with the swift, confident strokes, adapting to every detail with precision. That's SSD for you. We've now come to the conclusion of chapter 3. So in essence, we have MobileNet, the lightweight sprinter, perfect for mobile devices. SSD, the one-pass wonder with the flair for multi-skill detection. And YOLO, the real-time magician that only takes look to decipher a visual enigma. These models are the epitome of how technology evolves to cater to our needs, compact, efficient, and blazingly fast, all while preserving the remarkable accuracy that's reshaping the way we interact with images and objects around us. We have now come to chapter 4, data preparation. Chapter 4, Introduction. Absolutely. Let's unveil the critical elements that lay the foundation for successful deep learning models: high-quality labeled datasets, data augmentation, and data processing. Let's take a look at high-quality labeled datasets. Imagine a painter facing a blank canvas. The quality of the paints, the strokes, and the colors all determine the masterpiece's final form. Similarly, for deep learning models, the dataset is the canvas, and the labels are the colors that add meaning. High-quality labeled datasets are the cornerstone of model training. They provide the ground truth, the real-world annotations that guide the model's learning process. A robust dataset ensures that the model learns not just from vague approximations, but from precise examples. These datasets enable models to understand, interpret patterns, variations, and relationships, resulting in better accuracy and performance when applied to real-world scenarios. Let's take a look at data augmentation. Imagine a chameleon blending its surroundings by changing its colors. Data augmentation is the digital chameleon of the deep learning world. It's the art of adding diversity to the data sets by creating variations of existing data. Just as an artist explores different angles and lighting in a painting, data augmentation alters images through rotations, flips, crops, and adjustments into brightness and contrast. This technique makes the model more robust and adaptable, enhancing its ability to generalize and perform well on unseen data. It's like enriching the artist's palette with shades that bring depth and dimension to the final artwork. Let's now take a look at data pre-processing. Imagine a sculptor preparing a block of marble for creation. Data pre-processing is the sculptor's chisel, shaping the raw material into a masterpiece before feeding data into a model. It needs to be pre-prepared, resized, normalized, and cleaned. Resizing ensures that all images are of consistent size, creating a level playing field for the model. Normalization transforms pixel values to a common scale, preventing any single feature from dominating the model's learning. It's like ensuring all instruments in an orchestra are perfectly tuned. Proper data pre-processing paves the way for smoother and more efficient model training, ensuring that the model isn't hindered by inconsistencies or skewed information. We've come to the conclusion of Chapter 4. In essence, these three elements, high-quality labeled datasets, data augmentation, and data pre-processing, are the artisans shaping the clay of raw data into models that can truly comprehend and interpret the world around them. Just as a symphony requires harmony among its instruments, the harmony among these components creates models that are not just accurate, but also adaptable, capable of handling the complexes of real-world scenarios. It's a testament to the meticulous artistry that underpins the magic of deep learning. We've come to Chapter 5, Model Training. Chapter 5, Introduction. Imagine an apprentice learning a craft from a master. That's the essence of model training. It's like teaching a digital brain to recognize patterns, like teaching a digital brain to recognize patterns, make connections, and draw insights from data. At its core, model training involves exposing the algorithm to labeled examples, allowing it to adjust its internal parameters and weights. As it sees more examples, it refines its understanding, gradually sharpening its ability to make accurate predictions or identifications. It's a journey of refinement, where the algorithm evolves into a specialized tool capable of tackling real-world tasks with remarkable precision. Let's look at pre-trained models and fine-tuning. Imagine starting a painting with a partially filled canvas. That's what pre-trained models offer. Pre-trained models are like experienced artists who've already created masterpieces on similar subjects. These models have been trained on massive datasets for general tasks like object recognition. However, their expertise can be harnessed for specific tasks by fine-tuning them. Think of it as adding the finishing touches to a masterpiece. By tweaking and adapting the pre-trained model to your specific needs, you're leveraging its existing knowledge to excel in your chosen domain, saving time and resources in the process. Transfer learning. Imagine a skilled musician picking up a new instrument. That's the essence of transfer learning. Transfer learning is a strategy where knowledge gained from solving one problem is applied to another related problem. It's like taking the expertise of an accomplished chess player and using it to excel in a game of strategy. In deep learning, this means utilizing a pre-trained model's understanding of general features and patterns to jumpstart the training process for a new specialized task. Not only does transfer learning expedite training, but it also enhances accuracy by leveraging the wisdom already ingrained in the pre-trained model. It's like inheriting the insights of a sage to navigate in uncharted territories with confidence. Chapter 5, Conclusion. In essence, training deep learning models is a dance of data and algorithms, a symphony of adjustments and fine-tuning that brings machines closer to human-like comprehension. With pre-trained models as our seasoned mentors and transferring learning as our guide, we've poised an unraveling insights from data were once hidden in the shadows. Its convergence of art and science as algorithms learn to discern the world with an intuition that both remarkable and ever evolving. Integration into Android apps. Chapter 6. Chapter 6, Introduction. Let's now step into the realm of integrating these powerhouse models into the palm of your hand. However, like your grand endeavor, there are challenges to overcome. Challenges of deploying on Android devices. Let's look at them. Those challenges. Imagine trying to fit a grand symphony orchestra in a small room. That's the challenge of deploying deep learning models on Android devices. Mobile devices have limited resources, memory, processing power, and energy. These constraints can pose obstacles when dealing with models that are often resource intensive, ensuring that your app remains responsive and efficient while running complex computations is a balancing act that requires careful consideration. Introducing TensorFlow Lite. What is TensorFlow Lite? TensorFlow Lite, a solution that's akin to crafting a masterpiece that perfectly fits the space you have. TensorFlow Lite is an optimized framework designed specifically for deploying machine learning models on mobile and embedded devices. It's like an architect reshaping a design to fit within the constraints of a specific landscape. This framework allows models to run smoothly on your Android device, utilizing resources judiciously and maximizing efficiency without compromising on accuracy. Converting trained models to TensorFlow-like format. Picture the process of transcribing a symphony for small ensemble, thus converting a trained model into a TensorFlow-like format. This process involves taking the existing trained models and transforming it into a more lightweight version that's tailored for mobile deployment, not development. This is achieved through a series of optimization techniques that streamline the model while preserving its core functionality. The result, a model that can elegantly perform its task within the limitations of your Android device. Benefits of model quantization. Imagine distilling a rich, complex wine into its essence. That's model quantization. Deep learning models are often sprawling landscapes of parameters, but model quantization prunes them down, reducing the memory foot and improving inference speed. It's like decluttering a canvas to reveal the brilliance of a single stroke. By quantizing or representing parameters with fewer bits, the model becomes more compact without losing much accuracy. This means quicker loading times, smoother interactions, and an overall more pleasant experience for your app users. Chapter 6 Conclusion. In the end, integrating deep learning models into Android apps is a dance between art and engineering, a delicate interplay of resource constraints and innovation. With TensorFlow Lite as your partner, and techniques like model quantization as your guiding stars, you're crafting an experience that seamlessly merges cutting-edge technology with the limitations of the real world. It's the fusion of ambition and practicality, resulting in apps that don't just inspire but also delight users on their mobile journeys. Let's look at the final chapter, chapter 7, real-world applications. Chapter 7, Introduction. Let's go through the step-by-step process of integrating a pre-trained model like MobileNet into your Android app for object identification using Kotlin. Why Kotlin? Kotlin is now the preferred programming language for Android apps. You could use Java for this, but I'll suggest that you move towards Kotlin as it's gaining more popularity within the Android ecosystem. Step 1. Loading the model in TensorFlow Lite. So let's look at this block of code. So I'm going to give reference to Lego bricks because Sciencey, which is based in Bulawayo, is working close with Lego in embedded systems and robotics competition. So yeah, let's look at how Lego bricks could help us in understanding this concept. So think of a special Lego box with amazing instructions. These instructions help you build something incredible with your Lego bricks. Now this code is like those instructions, but for a computer. In this computer world, there's a magical Lego box named TensorFlow Lite. Inside there's a model, a set of instructions that tells the computer of a super cool trick. It can look at pictures and figure out what's in them, just like you do. In the computer, there's a helper named TF Lite who understands these instructions. The code tells this helper, hey, get ready to follow these cool instructions. But sometimes things may not work perfectly, like when Lego bricks don't fit. That's why the code has a part that says, if something goes wrong, don't worry, just tell me and I'll try to fix it. So let's put this in simple words. This code gets the computer ready to use a magic Lego instruction book. It helps this computer understand pictures and tell us what's in them. If things don't go well, the computer would let us know and can help it do better. Like building Lego sets, this code helps the computer build its own special trick set to know what's in pictures. Okay. So that's what pretty much step 1 does in regards to the Lego reference. So let's look at step 2. Capturing images using the device camera. So let's look at this code block. So imagine building a fantastic Lego creation, like a cool tour house. But before you start, you need a way to see what you're building. So that's what this code does for a special camera. You have a helper called Camera Provider Future that knows how to get a magical camera. You tell it, get me a camera. You use a Lego brick called Camera View with a screen to show that the camera sees. You have a friend named Camera Executor who helps the camera work, like a buddy who helps you build. You ask the helper when the camera is ready. Tell me, your camera helper is smart and can listen. When the camera is ready, it says, I'm ready. You give it a job, show the picture on the big Lego camera view using the Lego set named Preview. You pick a part of the camera that looks at the things just like your eyes do. Use a Lego brick called Camera Selector to choose that part. Finally, you tell the camera to show its picture on the big Lego screen using the pieces from the preview set. You even give it a name, Camera, so it knows it's your helper. In short, this code helps you get a magical camera, show its picture on the big Lego screen, and make sure everything works together. It's like building a Lego house with a camera friend and watching what's outside. Let's look at the final step of implementing TensorFlow Lite with Kotlin and so forth. Okay. So on this code, we're going to imagine to have a Lego camera again that takes pictures just like your toy camera. This code is like giving instructions to that Lego camera. You use a blueprint named Image Capture to build your Lego camera that takes pictures. You have a special spot in your Lego town to keep the picture, like a special box for your toys. This is called image file. You tell your Lego camera, hey, take a picture and put it in that special spot. Your camera knows how to do it because you gave it the instructions. After the picture is taken and put it in the special spot, you follow instructions to do things with the picture before showing it to your friends. You look closely at the picture, like using a magnifying glass to see details. You make the picture a bit bigger, like zooming in on a toy camera. You use your Lego tools to get the picture ready, like cleaning toys before playing. This is called pre-processing. You show the picture to your smart Lego brain and ask, what's in this picture? Your brain can recognize things like how you recognize your toy animals. Your brain figures out what's in the picture. You use your Lego chart to see what it thinks. Finally, you tell your friends what your Lego camera found in the picture. So, in simple words, let's put this in simple words. This code tells your Lego camera to take a picture. Look at it carefully, ask your smart Lego brain, and tell you what it sees. It's like playing with Legos and making stories come to life. So we've come to the end of this presentation. In conclusion, discover the excitement of image recognition on object detection in Android apps, deep learning models like MobileNet, SSD, YOLO, to decode your visual world. These techniques bridge the gap between visual and digital, empowering apps to understand surroundings, create limitless possibilities for retail to healthcare, embrace deep learning, innovation, and shape the future. Let's push the boundaries and craft transformative apps. Thank you for joining. Can't wait for your creations. Thank you. Siyabonga. Tatenda.
Welcome everyone, and for this session, or for this part of the session of DevFest, we're going to be concentrating on connecting to a SQL database using C#. There are so many ways of connecting to a database when you're coding with C#, and we're going to just concentrate on one using Dapper, a NuGet package called Dapper, which was developed by Stack Overflow, so we can be confident with it, and it's quite easy, quite efficient. So what is Dapper? Well, Dapper is a micro object relational mapper. You might have heard of other object relational mappers like Entity Framework, which is very common these days, which is also another way and very good way of connecting to a SQL database or any type of database that you want to connect to using C#. And some of you also, especially people who've been coding for quite a number of years, they'll also remember Ado.NET, which is a set of classes that come with .NET that help you to connect to a SQL database. So the difference with these three methods that I've just talked about is, if you're going to be putting them in a line, Ado.NET would be on the left, Entity Framework will be on the right. Ado.NET, it's more of a database first approach. Entity Framework is more of a code first approach. So you're using C# to create your tables, to save data, and to retrieve data. And right in the middle, that's where Dapper is. Dapper has a mixture of both. So you find that Dapper, whilst we say Entity Framework is an object relational mapper, Dapper is a micro object relational mapper. So you find that there is a bit of both. So that's why we're going to be using Dapper, so that we can see how easy, how efficient it is to set up and even to get your data from the database and to save your data. So let's get right into it. Here I've got Visual Studio opened, Visual Studio 2022, that's the one that I'm going to be using, and we're going to be creating a simple API. so that we can connect to our database. I'm using the Azure Data Studio to connect to my database or to get access to my database. Azure Data Studio can be used for so many ways, in so many ways. I've got a table called TBL persons, which is inside the database called DevFirstDB. And I've got just one stored procedure, which is called SPSavePersons. And it's got a list of all those parameters, which are basically the same names as the columns in my table. What it will do, it will check if ID is null, then it will insert into persons, else it will update TBL persons. So it's got basically two functionalities that we're just doing based on a condition where the ID is null. That's it. So let's go back to Visual Studio, create a new project, and you can search for API, and you get ASP.NET Core Web API. So we're going to be using Core instead of Framework. And then next, and then we're just going to call this DevFirst API. Next, I'm going to be using .NET 7. Let's use .NET 7. You can use whatever, 5, 6, 7, it's all up to you. It will work all the same, and you can create. What it will do, it will create our API for us, the default API, which comes with the weather forecast controller. So let's just run it to see how it is. Since on the creation of this project we chose Open API support, it comes with Swagger. So if we try it out here, if we execute it, you'll see it just brings us a list of temperatures and all that thing. So that's our normal API, and we're going to be adding our own functionality to it. So let's do that. We're going to first of all add our NuGet packages. So right click your project name here, manage NuGet packages, browse, and we're going to look for Dapper here by Sam Saffron, and then we're going to install the latest stable version. Click install, and it's done, it's already installed. Then system.data.sql client by Microsoft, and then we're also going to install the latest stable version. Click install, accept this, and there you go. It's always good to make sure that you install the latest stable version, because look at this, at least Microsoft made it good for us. They've told us some of those are vulnerable, so it's always good to make sure that your NuGet packages are up to date, security patches, speed, and everything. We're gonna go here into app settings.json, and we're gonna create our connection strings. Make sure it says connection strings in plural, and we're going to add our connection string. So you can add multiple connection strings to an API. So yeah, I'm going to call this DevFirst connection, and then I'm going to add my data source, and the data source is basically the server that you're trying to connect to. So I'm just going to put a dot. You can either put a localhost or the IP address of your server. Initial catalog is the name of the database. Initial catalog is going to be DevFirstDB, and then you're going to put your user ID and password. User ID and password, and that's it. That's it for this file. And then make sure you add that comma there at the end, otherwise you'll definitely face challenges. The next thing I want to do, we're just going to save that. And the next thing we're going to do is we want to add our models. The first thing that I'm going to add is a folder called models, and inside the folder called models I'm going to add another folder called DTOs. Then I'm going to add a person's DTO. Think of this as your view model, for example. I'm just going to call it DTO here. I like to call it DTO. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy a create statement from SQL here, from Azure Data Studio, paste it in my C# in my project here inside of comments, because what I've got is I've got GitHub Copilot, so it's going to just suggest for me all the properties that I have based on those comments. So, and now I'm going to make this nullable and delete all those other ones. Fix my formatting, Control K, Control D, and there we have it. We've got our persons DTO that will help us to move data from our app to the database. Next thing, I'm going to create another folder inside models class, inside the models folder. I'm going to call this DB, no, let me change that, data connections. And then inside the data connections, I'm going to put a class called SQL data connection. Nice. And then inside this class, that's where we are going to be connecting to our database. So everything that we want to do for the database is going to be coming or being used by this class. So what we want to do first of all is to add a private method, private read-only string, connection string. I'm going to remove the underscore. I don't like using underscore, some people like. And then in my constructor, I'm going to pass in a string called connection string. And then I'm going to click Control dot and initialize field connection string, and it will initialize that variable that we created at the top for us. Next thing we want to do is to create a method that will save to the database. So first of all, public async task of type list. Sorry, let's start with retrieving data from the database. Of type list and generic type T. The list of is of type generic type T. We're going to call this load data using stored procedure async. All my async methods, I always like to put async at the end. And GitHub Copilot is suggesting some code for me here. I'm just gonna check it out and see if I would want this. Yes, I would definitely want this. So I'm just gonna accept there, but I'm gonna use the simple version of using, and then Control dot on IDB to import all those usings, including Dapper. Query async is from the Dapper class, and then IDB is from data, and SQL connection from SQL client, data client. So this is it. Make sure that you've got command type stored procedure there. Make sure that we want to connect using a stored procedure, and so you're going to be passing in a connection string to the IDB, to the SQL connection class, and then what we're going to be doing is you're going to be querying async, and I'm going to just wrap this under a try block so that we make sure that we handle our errors correctly. And then if we don't find anything, just going to return a list of type T, of generic type T, which will be empty, of course. The next thing is we want to load data again. Copilot is still suggesting, but I don't want to use that. I'm going to have async as well. Task type list of type generic T, and this one is going to be load data using SQL query. So we can use our SQL views, we can use our normal SQL queries if you want. And GitHub Copilot is suggesting for me, I think I'm going to take this. This time it did a better job. And what we're going to be doing here is I'm going to add just one more thing here. The command type, it needs to be this time text, command type dot text. So basically what we're saying here is we want to connect. Some people like to retrieve data using stored procedures. Some people like to use SQL queries, SQL views. So with this load data using SQL query, you're going to be using, you can use it with views, you can use it directly with normal SQL queries. And what we're basically doing here is we're going to use, you're going to be using IDB connection and creating a variable of that data type, and it will be to new SQL connection. And remember, we created SQL connection, and we're going to be fetching the data using query async. So this query async here is from Dapper, which is an extension method to the IDB connection. So, excuse me, we're going to be passing in our SQL query, and we're going to make sure that our command type is command type.text. Then if it finds anything, it will assign the things to a row and return the rows list. If it doesn't find anything, or if there's an exception, it will then return new. Sorry about that. Even if it doesn't find anything, it will just return an empty row, an empty list. Perfect. Thank you. So moving on, we're going to move on to saving data. And to save data, we're also going to do both ways, saving data using a stored procedure and saving data using an SQL query. So let's start off with that. Public async task, and this one is going to be of type string, and I'll explain why just now. And then we're going to use save data using stored procedure. And as like I said again, put async. Copilot is suggesting code for me. I'm just gonna accept this, and we're gonna pass in the name of our stored procedure, and T parameters is going to be our person's DTO. So we're going to be passing in our whole person's DTO there. Make sure that, again, you're passing in stored procedure. Just going to change this, to data saved successfully. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you pass in your stored procedure name, the parameters will be the DTO, and command type is going to be stored procedure, just like we did when loading data. And that's it. And for the exception, I think I'll leave that, fail to save data, and then the exception method. Then next, we're going to try again, public async task, again of type string, and Copilot is suggesting for me this looks good, and this time it did an even better job because command type.text is there, and you want to make sure that it's .text. When it does correctly, it will return data saved successfully, and that's it. So that's basically how you can connect to SQL using C# and Dapper. Very simple, very easy to use, very easy to set up. Every other class that you want to set up or that you want to connect to the database is going to be calling these 4 methods, and that's all you need to do. And we're going to be calling these 4 methods. They'll be, depending on what you want to do, if you want to use a stored procedure or if you want to use an SQL query, it's all up to you. And there's nothing else that you really need to do there. Once you've just set this thing up, with this you can connect to your databases. So let's create a person class that will have the methods to add a person, to retrieve a person, and so on. So inside the models class, I'm gonna create a file called I'm gonna create a folder first, classes, and inside the classes folder, that's where I'm gonna put my person folder class. Nice. And then we're gonna create a private field, again private field, read-only field with connection string, called connection string, and let me just type that. Connection string, and then in my constructor I'm going to pass in the connection string as well, string connection string, and then we're going to control.initialize field. It initializes for us, and then public async task of type list of type persons DTO, load data using stored procedure. Sorry, I'm going to change that, get persons, and then we're going to pass in the person's DTO. I'm going to remove that U, we don't need that. I'm going to remove that, and it's supposed to be passing in an integer of ID in case we are searching for a person by integer, and it's going to be nullable. And in here we're just going to create our SQL data connection object, call it SQL equals new, and we're going to pass in our connection string. Remember, SQL data connection is the class that we created to connect to database. And then var persons list equals new persons list. So we're going to be putting our list of people here when we find anything. So if ID is equal to null, I'm just going to accept this from GitHub Copilot. So what I want to do is, when there's null, it has to select all people in the database. And then if there's a specific ID that has been passed, then it will select where ID equals that ID, like that. Just gonna simplify the if else statement. I don't need the brackets, and then return persons list, and that's it. You can get your people from these just 4 or 5 lines of code, and you're done. The next thing, we're gonna try and add a person. Public async task of type string, and it's gonna be save person async, and then I'm gonna put here our brackets, and we're gonna pass in the person DTO, and inside here we're gonna do the exact same thing that we did. SQL data connection SQL equals new, and we'll pass in the connection string, and then we're gonna create a variable var result equals await SQL dot save data using stored procedure async. We're going to pass in the person's DTO, and inside the person's DTO we're going to pass in our name of the stored procedure, sb save person, and we're going to pass in our person DTO, and that's it. Then we'll return the result. So remember, the result is going to be either data saved successfully or the error message. So that's why we're putting task of type string instead of list, because we're not going to be fetching it. Right click, Control Shift A, persons controller, and we will have our persons controller inheriting from controller base. And a control dot import the necessary usings, and here private read only string connection string, and we're gonna, in our constructor, we're gonna do some dependency injection, configuration, and we're gonna get our connection string from the configuration. So connection string equals configuration dot get connection string, and the name of our connection is DevFest connection, and that's it. Then we do our endpoints. We're going to start off with the endpoint to add a person, or to save a person. I'm going to give it that root API save dash persons, and then in here, that's where we are gonna, and GitHub Copilot suggests for me here, I'm gonna accept this. After analyzing that, I'm gonna add the necessary usings for persons DTO, and remember it's a type string, which is not what we want. it's iAction result. It's iAction result because we are going to be sending data to and from the data, from the API, and then persons DTO, and we'll import that, and also for the persons, and make sure that it's from body because we don't want it to be getting it from the query string. And then here we're gonna import the necessary person classes folder. Here we're gonna remove that so that we make sure that depending on the results, if result is equal to data saved successfully, then we'll return OK with the data, else bad request with the exception. So there you have it. That's how you can save a person. Now here we're gonna get a person, and it's an HTTP get root, and I like that suggestion from Copilot. This time it got iAction result correctly, and it will pass in an ID, and if there's an ID, it will get all persons, if not just one person. And again, same thing, if it finds someone, and then return OK with the result, otherwise return not found or 404 error. So there you have it. That's exactly how you can connect to your database using SQL. And I'm just remembering something here. I think in my persons, yes, I accepted the suggestion, which was just persons, supposed to be TBL persons. Right, I think that's it. We can run this and hopefully it will work. Let's see how it goes. So yeah, our Swagger, first of all, post. Let's try that out. I'm just going to remove ID here because it can be nullable, and then I'm going to put first name, surname, Joe, email, sj@email.com, postal address 1 Post Street in suburb. Date of birth, let's put this guy to be a very old guy, 19 Feb 2020, 1930. And then occupation, software developer, and he's just got 1 year of experience, and he's not deleted. We're going to execute this, and hopefully, yes, data saved successfully. So let's go and check in our database to see if data was saved successfully. We're going to run this select statement, and yes, our person has been added successfully. So let's try to add another person. We're going to try to add another person, Gertrude. Change the surname there, and it's gonna be GL. It's gonna be, they're gonna be neighbors, 3 Post Street, and it's gonna be a very young lady, and then a real estate agent, and we're gonna give her a lot of years experience. Let's say 30. And it's false. We execute that, and data saved successfully, and that is it. Let's refresh this SQL statement, and we've got our 2 people there that have been added to our TBL persons table. And that's how easy it is to connect to a database using C# and Dapper. Let's try to get these people. So we said if it's null, when you execute, it should get all people, and that's exactly what's happening here. It gets all people, and then if we try to put an actual ID, 1 there, execute, it should get the first person, Sam Joe, and 2, it should get Gertrude, and there you have it. It is getting Gertrude. If we try to find someone else, we've got 404 not found, that error status that we put in our persons controller when we were putting that endpoint. So there you have it. An easy way of connecting to a database using C# and DAPA. It's very easy. As you can see, some may argue it's probably easier than Entity Framework with all the patterns that you might need to abide to when you're using Entity Framework. But basically, like what we said in recap, we're just basically saying with C# you can really connect to a database in so many ways. One of the ways is DAPA. DAPA is a micro object relational mapper, and it helps you to connect to your database partly using SQL queries. And the thing is, it is good that it will map all your objects for you because it is an ORM in the end. And it's really good, especially when you are dealing with normal data, if you don't really have any complexities that you've got. And the good thing is as well, you know the SQL query that she's gonna run. Of course, Entity Framework, they have done a very good job in making sure that they'll try to compile an SQL statement that is very efficient based on your C# code. But with this, you've got a bit of greater control over the SQL queries that you like to use. So that's how you can do it, and that's an easy way of connecting to a database using C#. And that's a wrap.
Welcome to this talk sponsored by Sibanye Zim DevConf. So my name is Tatenda. I'm going to be speaking on remote working. So hope you guys will learn a lot. So let's just start right in. A brief intro of myself. My name is Tatenda Munenge. I'm a software engineer currently working for a UK-based company, but previously I've been working remotely for the last couple of years since 2019. The end of 2019, I've been working remotely. I've managed to work in companies in countries like Canada, Germany, and South Africa, and now the UK. So I think I've got a fair bit to share as far as working remotely is concerned, my experiences and challenges, how to get these jobs, how to the interview process. So I hope people in the Zimbabwe dev community can learn from a thing or two from this talk. So let's just start on the things that I'm gonna be speaking about. I'll just give an overview of the remote working space post COVID-19, how you can find the remote jobs, applying for jobs, tips on applying, tips on the interview processes, getting paid, how to succeed in the roles, downsides of remote working, and at the end we're just going to conclude. Remote working, essentially, for those who do not know, it's essentially where professionals can work in a non-traditional office setup. So usually people are working from their homes. Some have adopted a digital nomad lifestyle where someone is actually traveling around the world but working. That depends on how much you're making. You can't be a digital nomad on 20,000 a year, but still. I was researching the few studies that say that they found out that 27% of employees in the US now work remotely. 85% of managers believe remote work is the new norm. Remote workers are said to be more productive than their office counterpart. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, that's what ChatGPT said. And also remote work can lead to increased innovation. All these stats are pointing out to a workforce leaned more towards remote work, especially for jobs like software engineering, user and UI UX. So the future is really bright, I must say. So as you can see on this slide, this is a survey, 2023 survey done by Stack Overflow on software engineers. And you can see that almost over 80% of people are working remotely in some capacity, with 41.41% of those surveyed working remotely full time. So in the context of Zimbabwe, this is a good
indicator. I mean, most people should, especially software engineers, designers, UI UX, web designers, and stuff like that, you should take on more of these roles. We've got so many talented engineers who have graduated who can't find work. I myself was one, I couldn't find work when I graduated. The salaries are almost always better than what you get locally for similar roles, and you get to earn foreign currency because you're paid in most remote roles pay you in US dollars, euros, or Great British pounds. So you get to earn foreign currency, which might actually be good for the country overall because you're earning real. It's like you're exporting. So we're just gonna rush, where you can find these type of jobs. Anyone who is able to Google should be able to find these jobs with ease. But I took the liberty to list some of the popular sites that you can use to help you with your search. The one I put up front is LinkedIn, which is really cool because with LinkedIn you can create your custom job alerts. Suppose you want to target React developer front-end job, so you can create a job alert where if it's a job that needs React and that remote gets posted, you can get an email alert. So that's a cool feature that LinkedIn has. LinkedIn also has got LinkedIn Premium, which also gives you a whole lot of features to help you with your job hunt. But the others like Indeed.com, FlexJobs, and also networking with programmers, other developers in your same field, same line of work. I can't stress enough the importance of network. I myself, I benefited. There was one time I was jobless, and I reached out to some of my friends in the community, and they referred me to the other friends whose companies were hiring. So the networks are really powerful. Also, when you are working, you need to build relationships with your co-workers. You need to have good relationships with your co-workers. Sometimes you both move on, but sometimes they might need a type of developer they know I can do. They can just shout out to me then. So that's how you are able to grow in your career. So I can't stress enough the importance of networking. The other sides like we work remotely, Upwork and Freelancer.com, I'm not a big fan of those, but it does work for some other people, I guess. If you are starting out, you could try to utilize social media. If you haven't had any experience working as a software engineer at any role, you could try using Facebook. You join groups. Suppose you're a React.js developer, you join a React.js group in Facebook. If you're a Laravel developer, you can join one for Laravel. Then you can try to, usually they post jobs and stuff like that. Small projects there, you get experience there. So that's what I would advise. There are like tech-specific job marketplaces like Lara jobs for PHP, Laravel, PHP Workplace, kind of like that. So you could utilize those. So we're just gonna jump on to the tips of applying for remote jobs. You need to invest in your CV. You could buy a premium template, it's only about $10, just to stand out from the rest. But if you are good with design, you can design your own. Also take time to update your LinkedIn. Take those skill assessment tests on LinkedIn to help recruiters find you. Some recruiters, CTOs, they'll look at your GitHub as a pre-selection. So you kind of need some activity there if you're starting out, I guess. You could set up your GitHub so that it displays what's happening on the private repo on the public side. So yeah, that's a pro tip. You need to be technically good. If you're not technically good, you'll be found out. So you need to be technically good. My advice is, don't jump from technology to technology. Just specialize. If you want to be a PHP Laravel developer, just do PHP Laravel. Know it inside out. Jobs will follow. If you want to be a React.js, know it inside out. Avoid the tutorial hell. Try as much as possible to avoid tutorial hell. Just focus on one thing and build projects. Volunteer your services. Build your personal project. Get paid clients to work on real life projects. That way, when the technical assessment interview comes, you are able to nail it because you kind of know how to end the project from start to top. So that's my advice there. Always include a cover letter when you're applying for these jobs, and when you're writing the cover letter, try to look at the requirements for that job and try to express your experience like how you experience with some of the requirements. Suppose a job requires you to know Docker, so you kind of on your cover will take it, right? I've worked with Docker for certain amounts of years with this project and stuff like that. So that's another tip there. If you don't have any formal education like a college degree or diploma, don't worry about it. I've been working since 2019. I've never been asked about my degree. So really, the industry values skill more than formal education. If you find yourself in a position where you don't tick all the boxes on the requirements of the job, just apply anyway. It won't hurt you, and most of the time you'll be surprised you'll be called up for the interview. So we're gonna move on to the interview process, and it's usually multiple rounds depending on the company. If you're gonna try to work at places like Facebook and Google, expect to do a lead code test. So lead code test is brutal, but with smaller companies, you can just do 3 rounds of interviews, which is a take-home test, behavioral test, and the technical assessment test. So those ones, usually you need to pass the trial project to proceed with the interview process, which is not that difficult as if you know the skills there. So on tips on the trial project, because that's one the trial project is one that is going to make or break you. So I'm just gonna spend some time, on it. So when you get a trial project, usually they give you 5 days or a week, to do it. You want to do it as soon as possible and do it within a day. And if they mention specifically to say this solution must be in React.js, make sure you do it in React.js. Even if you are better at Angular, but the job wants you to do React.js. If a solution needs to be in Laravel, do it in Laravel. I've been fortunate enough to assess some of the solutions at one of my previous roles where we are assessing candidates and ranking them in their order of their performance. So if I had an issue where we're looking for a Laravel developer and someone submitted in Symfony, we disqualified immediately. Someone submitted in C#.NET, we disqualified immediately. Doesn't mean their solutions was wrong, but it was in the wrong context of the job that they were looking for. So you need to be very specific there. When you're submitting your trial project, make sure it doesn't have bugs. Make sure it meets all the requirements. Make sure that you include the instructions to run the project, usually with the readme.md file. You need to make it easy as possible for the person who's going to test that project. So that's a tip there. Remember, the trial project is the one that makes and breaks you. If you're really good at it, sometimes I've seen people being exempted on the basis of their performance on their trial project. You are Zimbabweans, you're not supposed to work. Maybe they want only EU people for a role, but someone does really well on the trial project, so that they give an exemption to say, no, this guy is not in EU, but we will take him because of that. So you need to take this seriously. I can't stress this enough. And when you're going to do the video interviews, make sure you've got backup internet. But sometimes internet fails in Zimbabwe. I once had an issue where I was interviewing and Zoho failed all of a sudden, but I was smart enough to have Equinix as backup, so I just managed to continue with the interview. So you need to be wary of that. Getting paid can be difficult if you are in Zimbabwe, because most of the banks, they can't really, it's really difficult to get paid from outside. Some people use local banks, but it's really difficult because the money takes very long to come, or sometimes it doesn't come at all. So I recommend, I've been using TransferWire since 2021. I've never had issues with it. You can read on their website what they do, but it's really straightforward, and I really recommend it. Works in Zimbabwe, unlike most providers like PayPal. Wise works in Zimbabwe, so you should try it. It's a really cool service. Some people use Pioneer. It's cool. I've had friends who've used it and they recommend it quite well. Now that you've got a job, you're getting paid, you need to succeed. You need to provide value for the company. in Zimbabwe, we all know we've got power cuts, we've got internet outages. You need to prepare for that. And I recommend you invest in a backup system, a UPS system. Myself, I invested in a $300 system. It does well for me. I can have 2-3 days without electricity and I can still work. You don't want to be the guy who is always providing excuses that you don't have electricity, you don't have internet. You need to have a plan. You need to provide the value for the command that you're working for. So you have a certain plan on your power situations and your internet outage situations. You need to invest in a good setup, a good setup with work habits. You don't want to be working from your bed. You want to be productive that way. So, invest in a good desk, good chair that's comfortable, that doesn't break your back and stuff like that. Invest in monitors and stuff like that. All that stuff you need, noise cancelling headphones, just for you to be able to have that extra bit of productivity in you. When you run into issues, it's always important to ask so that you're able to account for your time. You don't want to be spending a week working on one part. When the split meeting comes, you won't be able to account for all the time. So if you run into issues, suppose you had a job, try as much as possible to ask quickly so that people are aware that you are facing issues. I'm gonna try to be quick. Also being punctual for meetings and also being online during work hours. There are downsides, like anything else. There are downsides to remote working. Isolation. Your holidays are different from your friends and relatives. Sometimes you might work on a different time zone, so you're working in the evening and you're sleeping in the afternoon. That can be weird for you and also can affect your social life as well. When you're working from home, there are unclear boundaries between your work life and your home life. So that might lead you to overworking and get burnt out as well. So that's the downside. So in concluding, there are more positive than negatives. You get to work with really smart people. You learn a lot. You can learn a lot. You can see how things are done. There's a lot to learn. So I really urge people to take on the global opportunities. You're not going to earn the six-figure salary like they say on Twitter, but there are steps you can eventually get there. You earn enough money, but definitely not 6 figures. So yeah, that's it on remote working. Hope you guys learned a lot. Hope to see you working remotely and getting those those cool gigs and 6 figures in the future. Cheers.
Hello everyone, my name is Charmaine Musheko and I'm one of your speakers for the Sibanye conference. I will be speaking about mobile development as a self-taught developer, and I will start first of all with my introduction. So, of course, people think that mobile development might be something extremely hard, but I've come to learn that if you have the right people teaching you, if you have the right environment nursing you, that you will be able to develop quite fluently and you will learn from the best and the pros. I'm going to talk about my journey now. So when it comes to my journey, I started off in 2020 where COVID hit. So I wasn't doing anything at home and I felt like, okay, let me do something that would pretty much bring my skill level up. And I decided to look at different programs. My sisters were sending me different programs through WhatsApp, so I decided to look at a few, and I decided to choose the Google Africa Scholarship Program. This program had mobile development in it, and I thought, oh wow, that's actually quite interesting. What is mobile development? So I decided to look into it. I looked at the different languages that you could do it in. There was Kotlin, there was Java, but at the time they were only offering it in Java. I knew nothing about Java at the time, so I decided, okay, I'm gonna take on this challenge. They said that I would know my mobile development by the end of the day anyways, so I'm gonna take the challenge on and see how best I can take hold of this opportunity. So what I did was I took part of the program and I looked at the different leadership boards. I was on the leadership board for mobile development and I was pretty much in the top 10. So I decided to keep myself there. But what I was doing was that I was consuming content and I wasn't really understanding and grasping the concepts. As long as the content was done to me, I felt like I knew what I was doing. So I did tutorials. I did so much looking into the background, like going forth into YouTube and looking at the different ways that people develop these kind of apps. And then at the end of the day, I developed a mobile app. So I thought I knew it all at this point. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of my journey and that I actually needed to understand the core concepts like variables, constants, dictionaries. I needed to go back to the programming basics and I only knew this through the mentor. So the main things that I would like to talk about today is, first of all, the importance of a mentor. Second of all, the 3-step flow, and the last one is the imposter syndrome. As a self-taught developer, you're gonna be facing this quite a lot. So that's why I've included it in this talk. I wish I knew the importance of having a mentor in the beginning because I thought that I could do it all by myself. Luckily, I was able to understand that having a mentor is there for you to understand the basic concepts so that they know where to place it. Of course, you might know the concepts, but in your mind, they feel like they're all over the place. So what a mentor does is he puts them in the sections that they're supposed to be. So that's how my mentors have helped me. They have also encouraged me in my self-confidence because you're gonna have to have a lot of self-confidence when it comes to this. The 3-step flow. So the 3-step flow for me is how I learned the fundamentals of laying out my architecture for my mobile apps. So how I did this was looking at the service layer, looking at the database, and finally the user interface. So how the flow of data goes through a mobile app is starting off first from the service layer, where you find an external database called an application programming interface. This is an API. So if you go, let's say, into a software developer's talk or just somewhere you will find a lot of tech geeks, you will be hearing API quite a lot because that is where most people get their data sources. So how we first start is starting from retrieving data from the API. Then we would go and save it in the database of the application. I like to use iOS. That is what I develop in the most. I also develop in Flutter, but Flutter is quite new to me, so iOS is basically my baby. So what happens is with the database, you save the data from the API. Since the API is an external source, you want to have the data locally. You want to retrieve it as soon as you need it. So what you would use is, of course, the database in order to retrieve data locally. Then from there, you would send it to the middle tier. The middle tier is where you now perform or you execute different algorithms or different functions that are able to trigger anything on the UI, which is the user interface. So basically, the middle tier is where you do the data manipulation so that you can trigger it on the user interface. So the user interface is where now you would see, if you open up the banking app, oh wow, I see FNB's beautiful logo. That is where you do the look and feel of the app. So there you can pretty much go all out with designing. But I'm gonna take you back a little bit. Don't go all out to the point where you cannot develop what you are trying to design. Design in such a way that you know that if I'm to develop this app, this would be easy to execute. You're pretty much bringing the data and its manipulation right for the user to use. So how does this work? If I press on a button, I want something to happen. It's either it navigates to the next page or I see a loading indicator bringing my money in. So that's basically what a trigger would do on the UI. Designing your app. You want to be able to design your app in a way that you'll be able to protect the user, and also in a way that the look and feel doesn't get too much into the development of your app. When you're designing your app, you would like to use tools like, first of all, XD, and also maybe Flutter. Flutter has a way of using XD and importing it almost directly into Flutter so that you don't have to do all the coding. You can also do this with Xcode. You can design some of your things in Xcode in the UI, but I wouldn't really recommend that. Try and have like a vision and place that vision in reality. Getting into the fintech space, you're probably wondering how the two correlate, but mobile development and finance is quite closely related. So how do you do this? When you look at how to automate your trading, your banking, and also your insurance, tech is the way to go. So how best to do this? Have it on your phone through mobile development. So looking at fintech, this space, I exclusively wanted to talk about this because it's something that we quite lack a little bit here in Southern Africa. Looking into the Eastern Africa, if you look at things like M-Pesa, where you're able to transfer money almost immediately to your partner, or even just to a vendor on the street. We want to get to that world. We don't want to use cash all the time. So developing means that we need to find algorithms and functions in a way that will make this easy. Of course, I'm not there yet, but it's a path that I'm busy going on. So going into the technical side of things, we want to make sure that the data that is on there is protected, because imagine having your personal information or your banking information on that app and it just goes with the wind through hacking. So as a mobile developer, you need to make sure that you protect the user and you protect your mobile app from any attacks that may come. Right now, we are busy discussing within Namibia the data protection bill that we have. This bill is meant for us as developers and also anyone else who will be using personal data to be able to execute and to develop their products quite efficiently. So it is important for you to understand what data you're placing within apps, how to protect it, and how best to secure your app. Cybersecurity is also a way in which to do this, but that's a bit too much for me right now. I'm just gonna focus on fintech. So speaking in those lines, fintech is also a way to help users gain financial literacy and to help them manage their finances, risk management, and other ways informed. So the key takeaways that I would give you today is, first of all, start. Just start learning. You will fail anyways. You will be bad anyways. So start anyways. Number two, that you will miss 100% of the opportunities that you don't take. And the opportunities are all around you. So do take them. And number three, when it comes to feeling imposter syndrome, look within and believe in yourself. You will win. And as a conclusion, I would like to basically invite you, if you haven't actually started your journey yet, to start. Technology is not that intimidating, and actually getting into things, once you rough it up a little bit, becomes easier with time. A skill based and a skill learned is something that you only learn once you start. So I would say, concluding, that mobile development for me has been quite a journey. I've cried. I felt like I wasn't worthy of being there, but with the help of my team in most times, because collaboration is everything in mobile development, and also my mental health also increasing and becoming better with time, knowing that my confidence has grown with my skills, it had to take me believing in myself and believing that other people want the best for me. So start your journey there. Thank you.
our last segment, I'm joined with Tatenda Malunga. She's a business analyst at Green Enterprise Solutions and a co-worker as well. Tatenda, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Audrey.
Awesome. So Tatenda, tell us, before we even go into our topic is, catalyst of change, business analysis and technology driving modern business. That's a mouthful. But before we get into the technicalities, can you tell us about yourself? Who is Tatenda, what you do, and all of that, so that people can get to know you?
Okay, so I am a business analyst, senior business analyst at Green Enterprise Solutions. I am responsible for business analysis, software beats, as well as digital transformation. I'm a mom. I play volleyball. I'm a fitness mom. I'm a fit mom. And I'm a beautiful mom of 2 beautiful sons.
Nice, awesome. So these catalysts of change in the context of business analysis, can you tell us more about it? What does it mean really for someone that's not really that technical, and what it means in the tech world?
So basically, business analysis is the phenomenon where you are bridging the gap between the non-technical and the technical people.
Okay.
So we as business analysts, basically, if you, for example, want a system, and we would be the ones who come into your organization, understand what your needs are, and then translate those into specifications that are made by IT solutions. Okay. So we are basically the bridge between technical people, non-technical people, and the developers.
Awesome. So you guys are the mediators.
Yes, we are.
That's really interesting. So in terms of, are there any practical examples where business analysis is applied? Like, let's say in the work environment, let's say.
Yeah, most definitely. I'll give us a Zimbabwean example, and then I'll also give a Namibian example. Okay, for instance, in Zim, 2 years ago, I'd say a passport would take 6 months to come out.
Yeah.
But now we have a new system whereby your passport comes out in about a week. That's a transformation that involves technology and business analysis. Yeah. So there was a business analyst involved who said, why is the passport taking 6 months? Mm-hmm. What can we do? What is the cause that we're having these delays? Right. What can we do to improve this process of getting your passports? So that's where business analysis comes in, because business analysts are looking at opportunities for improvement. They're looking at inefficiencies, that the bottlenecks, so that we can improve the processes for any organization. Okay. And then in the Namibian context, NASFAF. The applications would take long. You'd have to submit your papers physically, and then wait for 2 weeks to a month, or even more than that, for you to get a response. But now NASFAF has the system whereby you apply online, you upload your documents, and within a week or 2 you get a response on your application.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to see, the value of business analysis, because I'm a developer. Yeah. In my mind, if I create the next big application, let's say the next Facebook of Namibia or Zimbabwe or whatever, I feel like I've accomplished, a lot. But again, when I put that product into market, it fails because probably I didn't think of business analysis.
Yes, you wouldn't have thought of the users, and you wouldn't have also thought of the processes, because business analysts come in to look at the processes and to understand the users, and to say, okay, you want to do this, but this way won't work because the users are this certain people. Because remember, the business analysts sit with the people, they sit with the stakeholders from executive level to operational level, to understand what it is exactly that organization requires. And then they decompose those requirements into specifications to be met by the technology that is being suggested.
Okay, so you mentioned about the driving, changing the drive for innovation in terms of business analysis and our current tech environment. So how does that collaborate? How do those two meet?
Okay, at the core of business analysis is business processes, which drive any organization.
Okay.
Right. If you think about Coca-Cola, you think that there's a production line where they mix the ingredients and then put mix the ingredients and maybe have them sit for some time, and then there's the bottling. If you think of, let's say, building an app, you think, okay, what is this app going to look like? Which buttons are we going to put? That is all business analysis. It's a process where most people skip it or think it's not important. But even most people do it. Even when you budget, when you're looking at where can I reduce my, that is that's a form of business analysis, because you're looking at the context of okay, given my household,
last month my budget didn't go until end of the month, where can I reduce?
Right.
Well, that's business analysis, because you're looking at the bottlenecks and the inefficiencies that you have in your home, and then trying to make improvements. So basically that's what we do as business analysts.
Awesome. So to someone that wants to venture into business analysis for in terms of career wise, what skills and what are the key areas that they need to understand for them to really excel in this area?
Okay. So business analysis falls even in areas that are not technological.
Okay.
Right. It's not only in the.
It's not only in tech.
Yeah, it's not only in
Okay.
tech. So one needs to be you need to have analytical skills, because you're going to be faced with complex processes that you need to break down and understand,
Right.
and then translate that to the technological team, which is usually the programmers. So you need to be very analytical. You need to have problem-solving skills, and there are also some free certifications that you can. Coursera has some, and you can look at some on LinkedIn just to understand more on what business analysis. But mostly you must be a people's person as well, because you're going to be talking to a lot of stakeholders.
Right. Yeah,
you need to manage people with different expectations, and today you're talking to an executive, the next moment you're talking to a cleaner who is used to writing to say, was this place cleaned today? Yes, this time. And now you're telling her you have to put it on a tablet. So you have to be really a people's person and meet everybody at their level in terms of understanding technology. Because sometimes you go to organizations where the person has never used technology at all. So now you have to convince them or tell them why this technology is being introduced, which is also another thing where business analysts come in. We are like change agents, right? So we assist stakeholders and organizations from transitioning from their current state to the future state. And current state can be manual applications, and then future state would be making use of an app. So sometimes you find people that are resistant. We need to be able to help those people to ensure that the organization meets its IT needs.
So you guys are like, the front line of defense, because you have to bridge the gap, and it's becoming more clear why you guys are the middleman between the technical and non-technical world.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, actually. So moving on, Tatenda, I understand you also run your own business, or business is. You mentioned earlier that you are a mom.
Yeah.
You're also into fitness.
Yes.
How do you balance all of these things?
Okay, about balancing, I don't know how I do it, because my partner is always saying, you do so many things, but you do it so well. Okay, for me, it's a thing of life will always happen to you. So you need to prioritize the things that matter to you in your life. For me, fitness, I've always been a sport person since I was in high school, and I just want to motivate other moms to also be fit, because even when I was pregnant, I was working out. I stopped working out when I was 7 months pregnant, but I was still walking around my block just to make sure that I put in my steps. So, and I run a jewelry business. I've always been a creative person since I was young, so I make handmade jewelry, earrings, bridal hair pieces, and all that. So anything that has to do with creating something with my hands comes easily for me.
Wow.
Yeah. And in terms of fitness, I also play volleyball. So I play volleyball for a social club in Windhoek in Namibia, Kudos Club. So that's just me. I always say you make time for the things that matter to you. So if fitness is important to you, you make time for it. If
you've mentioned so many things, and I look at my life, I feel like I'm the busiest person in the world.
You are.
But no, not really, honestly, because I mean, you are into sport, and I don't even have a sport. I had a sport, but I didn't play much. But I just find myself so busy in a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to learn, how to balance, like you mentioned.
Yeah. So prioritizing your needs. You just look at, okay, what do I need? If I need to be fit, then 5 times a week to the gym. That's my target.
Okay.
That's what I do. If you want to be part of a hobby that you just get away, like volleyball, it's my me time. There's no kids, there's no partner, there's no business, there's nothing. So I'm just having my me time with my teammates.
Yeah.
So that's my me time. So it's just a matter of looking at what is it that I want, and then prioritizing that and getting that.
Okay. Any last words, Tatenda, before we close?
I'm hoping that from this talk, people understand the gem that is business analysis. I know many developers will say, no, I've developed this thing and it's amazing. And then you pass it to the business analyst, and then we are asking you questions. But did you look at the gender who's going to use this? Did you look at the area where the people are and all those, and because some people have amazing apps, but then in a low network area, that app is not. So we look at those things because we are looking at different aspects. We have so many evaluation techniques that we use, Pastel, SWOT, and all that we use to look at solutions. So you guys should trust business analysis because it will make your technology even better.
There you have it, guys. Business analysis. It's not only about coding, guys. So if you're out there, please do understand what business analysis is. And thank you so much, Tatenda, for joining us.
Thank you for
it. Was a pleasure having you. So it wasn't easy to prepare the content that we had for you guys. So we have some bloopers. Check this out.
A bit below you. So that is how communities should work. A circle of this was supposed to be.
Debugging is an essential skill that every software developer needs to have, and debugging is inevitable. You're going to run into bugs and you're going to have to resolve them. So in this talk, I'll focus on showing you how to use a debugger in one of the most popular software code editors, namely VS Code. I'll use a demo.
Hello, Sawubona, Makadini to everyone in the Zim Dev community. My name is Nkosinathi Dhanda. Your name? No? Oh, Mus.
And I hope you guys would find. Welcome. We are joined with Tatenda. Sorry, let me start again.